Last night, the glittering stage of the Night Beat didn't just host a talk show, it became the epicenter of a cultural earthquake. What was meant to be a polished interview with Ethan Voss, the billionaire genius behind Cerebralink, the company promising to merge human minds with machines, spiraled into a spectacle no one had seen coming. Voss, known for his steely composure and galactic ambitions, tore off his microphone, unleashed a tirade on host Mia Reynolds, and stormed off the set with the fury of a rocket misfiring at launch. The audience gasped. The crew scrambled, and social media erupted into a frenzy that made hashtags obsolete before the credits rolled. This wasn't just a meltdown, it was the Titans' tantrum, a clash of egos that left the world buzzing. The air in the studio was electric, long before Voss stepped out. The Night Beat, hosted by Mia Reynolds, was known for its razor-sharp wit and fearless interviews. Reynolds, with her trademark blend of charm and cunning, had a knack for disarming even the most guarded guests. Tonight, the anticipation was palpable. Voss, the man who'd built an empire on brain-machine interfaces, social platforms, and urban transit systems, was no ordinary guest. His company, Cerebralink, was both celebrated and vilified, hailed as the future of humanity and criticized for its murky ethics. The crowd was a mix of die-hard fans sporting Cerebralink merch and skeptics whispering about recent exposés on the company's animal testing scandals. As the lights dimmed and the theme music swelled, Reynolds strode onto the stage, her smile warm but laced with mischief. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her voice cutting through the applause. "Tonight, we're joined by Ethan Voss, the man who wants to turn your brain into a Wi-Fi router." The crowd laughed, some nervously. As Voss emerged, he was every inch the Titan, tailored charcoal suit, tousled hair, and a smirk that screamed unshakable confidence. He waved briefly, his eyes scanning the audience as if calculating their net worth in real time. Reynolds gestured to the chair opposite her desk, and Voss sat, crossing one leg over the other. "Ethan Voss, welcome to the Night Beat," she said, leaning forward. "Tell us, are you here to save humanity or just sell us the next overpriced gadget?" The audience chuckled, and Voss let out a short laugh. "I'm here to talk about progress, Mia," he replied smoothly. "The kind that moves us forward, not the kind that keeps us arguing over who gets the armrest on a plane." The banter started light, with Reynolds poking fun at Voss's ambitious projects. "Cerebralink," she said, raising an eyebrow. "You're telling me I can play Call of Duty with my thoughts? What's next? Tweeting with my cerebellum?" Voss grinned, unfazed. "It's not about games, Mia. It's about unlocking human potential. Imagine curing paralysis, restoring memory, or connecting minds across continents." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others skeptical. But Reynolds wasn't here to let Voss coast on charisma. She tapped her tablet, and a screen behind them flickered to life, showing a Cerebralink demo, a chimpanzee navigating a digital maze using only its thoughts. "Impressive," Reynolds said, her tone shifting. "But let's talk about the fine print. Those chimps, word is, they didn't exactly sign up for the gig." The audience stirred, and Voss's smile tightened. "Science requires sacrifice," he said, his voice measured. "Every breakthrough, penicillin, vaccines, came with tough choices." Reynolds leaned in, her eyes glinting. "Tough choices, sure, but when the choices involve animals suffering and reports say some of those chimps didn't make it, don't you think people deserve to know what they're signing up for?" The studio grew quiet, the air heavy with anticipation. Voss's jaw clenched, but he kept his cool. "You're oversimplifying it," he said. "The data we've gathered will save millions of lives. You don't get to the future by playing it safe." The crowd was split. Some clapped. Others whispered. Reynolds didn't flinch. She switched gears, pivoting to Voss's other ventures. "Let's talk Nexus, your social platform," she said. "You call it the future of free speech, but critics say it's a free-for-all for chaos. Bots, trolls, misinformation. How's that working out for you? Voss's eyes narrowed. Nexus is about truth, not control, he shot back. Unlike some platforms, we don't silence voices just because they're loud. The exchange was getting sharper, each jab landing harder than the last. Behind the scenes, producers exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't the breezy chat they'd planned. Reynolds pulled up another clip. This time, a leaked document alleging Cerebralink's human trials had been delayed due to safety concerns. Progress. Ethan, she asked, her voice dripping with skepticism. Or are you just racing to beat the competition? Ethics be damned. Voss's composure began to crack. His fingers gripped the armrests, and his voice took on a harder edge. You want to talk ethics? Let's talk about the media. Twisting stories to get clicks. You're not a journalist. Mia? You're a performer. The audience gasped, and a few clapped. Egging him on. Reynolds raised an eyebrow, unfazed. A performer, she replied. Maybe, but at least I'm not pretending to be humanity's savior while dodging accountability. The tension was palpable, like a storm gathering strength. Voss's face reddened, and his smirk was gone. The crowd sensed that something big was about to happen. Their phones were already out, ready to capture the moment. Backstage, a producer whispered into a headset, "This is getting out of hand." But it was too late. The sparks were flying, and the fire was about to ignite. The studio lights burned hotter, or it just felt that way, as the air crackled with tension. On the stage of the Night Beat, Mia Reynolds and Ethan Voss were no longer just host and guest. They were gladiators in a verbal arena, each strike sharper than the last. The audience, once buzzing with excitement, now sat on the edge of their seats, phones aloft, capturing every second of what was unraveling into a spectacle for the ages. What had started as a routine talk show interview was now a powder keg, and the fuse was dangerously short. Reynolds, her eyes locked on Voss, didn't let the silence linger. She leaned forward, her voice steady but laced with a challenge. You talk about saving lives. Ethan, but let's be real. Your Cerebralink trials have hit roadblocks. Leaked reports say your tech caused seizures in test subjects. Progress, or a lawsuit waiting to happen. The screen behind her flashed a grainy document, its redacted text barely legible but damning enough to make the crowd gasp. A murmur rippled through the studio, and a woman in the front row whispered loudly, "I knew it." Voss's face tightened, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the armrests. "Those reports are exaggerated," he snapped, his voice rising. "Every innovation has risks. You think Edison didn't blow a few fuses? You think the Wright brothers didn't crash a plane or two? We're pushing boundaries. Mia, not playing it safe for your sound bites." His words were sharp, but there was a tremor in them, a crack in the armor of his usual unshakable confidence. The crowd was split. Some clapped, rallying behind Voss's defiance, while others shook their heads, siding with Reynolds's probing. Backstage, the production team was in a state of chaos. A producer, headset pressed to her ear, hissed into her mic, "This is going off the rails. Do we cut to commercial?" Her colleague, a young assistant with wide eyes, shook his head frantically. "No way. This is viral gold. Keep rolling." The red light on the primary camera blinked steadily, a silent witness to the storm unfolding in real time. Reynolds didn't flinch. She tapped her tablet again, and the screen shifted to a montage of Nexus posts, screenshots of inflammatory rhetoric, conspiracy theories, and spam that had been bot-driven on the platform. "Let's pivot to Nexus," she said, her tone deceptively casual. "You call it a haven for truth, but it's more like a digital Wild West. Misinformation spreads faster than your Hyperloop. How's that truth working out when half your platform is screaming about alien invasions?" The audience erupted in laughter, but it was uneasy, tinged with the awareness that this was no longer just banter. Voss's eyes flashed with anger. "You cherry-pick the worst post to make a point," he shot back. "Nexus gives everyone a voice, not just the ones you approve of. You want to talk about truth. The media's been laying to people for decades, and you're part of it." The accusation landed like a grenade, and the crowd reacted instantly. Some booed, others cheered, and a man in the back shouted, "Tell her." Ethan, Phones were everywhere now, their screens glowing like fireflies in the dim studio. Reynolds raised an eyebrow, her smile thin but unshaken. Part of the media, guilty as charged, she said, her voice dripping with mock contrition. But at least I'm not selling a platform where truth means bots amplifying hate while you cash the checks. The crowd roared, and a few people stood clapping wildly. The energy in the room was electric, teetering on the edge of chaos. Voss's face reddened, and his hands twitched, as if itching to do something, anything to regain control. Backstage, the producer's voice crackled through headsets. Mia's pushing too hard. He's gonna snap. But Reynolds was relentless. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried more weight than a shout. Ethan, you're not just building tech, you're building a narrative. You want us to believe you're the hero, the visionary who'll save us all. But what happens when the hero's plans hurt more than they help? What happens when the monkey in your lab isn't playing games anymore, it's suffering? The screen flickered again, this time showing a leaked video from a Cerebralink facility. It was grainy, but the image was unmistakable. A chimpanzee, its head shaved and wires protruding, trembling in a cage. The crowd gasped, and a woman near the stage covered her mouth. Voss's eyes darted to the screen, and for a split second, he looked like a man caught in a trap. That's out of context, he bellowed, his voice shaking with fury. You have no idea what you're talking about. That video was manipulated to make us look bad. Reynolds didn't blink. Manipulated, she replied, her tone icy, or just inconvenient. You're not the only one with sources. Ethan, reports say your trials caused permanent damage to those animals, and now you want to put that tech in human brains. Forgive me if I'm not lining up for the beta test. The audience erupted again, a mix of cheers and groans. As the tension reached a breaking point, Voss slammed his hand on the desk, the sound echoing through the studio. You're a hypocrite, he shouted, his voice raw. You sit here, mocking progress, while people are dying from diseases we could cure. You don't care about truth, you care about ratings. The crowd was on its feet now, some yelling in support, others booing. A man in a Cerebralink t-shirt screamed, "She's lying." Ethan, while a woman nearby shouted back, "Sit down, fanboy." Backstage, the chaos intensified. The producer yanked off her headset, shouting, "We need to cut to break now." But the director, eyes glued to the monitors, shook his head. This is history. We stay alive. The red light on the camera burned brighter, capturing every second of the unraveling drama. Reynolds, calm as ever, leaned back in her chair. Ratings, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. Maybe. But let's talk about your numbers. Cerebralink's stock dropped 10% after those leaks. Your Nexus platform is bleeding advertisers because brands don't want to be associated with chaos. And your urban transit project, last I checked, those tunnels are still empty. Vision, or just a costly midlife crisis. That was the spark that lit the fuse. Voss's face twisted with rage. You smug little vulture, he roared, ripping the microphone from his collar and hurling it onto the desk with a deafening thud. The crowd gasped, then exploded into a cacophony of cheers, boos, and shouts. Phones flashed like a lightning storm, capturing the moment from every angle. Voss stood, his hands trembling, and pointed a finger at Reynolds. You think you're clever, tearing down people who build something. You're nothing. This show is nothing. The studio was a madhouse. A woman in the third row screamed, "Get her, Ethan," while others chanted, "Mia, Mia." Security guards edged closer to the stage, their faces tense. Backstage, a producer sprinted toward the control room, yelling, "Cut the feed. Cut it!" But the director held firm, his voice steady. We're live. And we're staying live. Reynolds didn't move. She stared at Voss, her expression a mix of calm and defiance. Nothing. She said, her voice low but piercing. I'm just asking the questions your investors, your employees, and your users deserve answers to. If that's nothing, then why are you so scared? The crowd roared, and a few people threw their hands in the air as if they'd just witnessed a knockout punch. Voss took a step forward, his presence filling the stage. scared. He bellowed, his voice shaking with fury. I'm changing the world, Mia. You're just a parasite. Feeding off the risks people like me take. His words hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. The audience was losing it. Some booed, others cheered, and a man near the back yelled, "Go back to your lab." The chaos was deafening, the kind of noise that makes your skin tingle. Reynolds stood now, her eyes locked on Voss. "Risks," she said, her voice like a blade. "I don't mock risks, Ethan. I mock ego. Especially the kind that crumbles when someone dares to call it out." That was the moment it snapped. Voss's face contorted, and he spun around, storming off the stage. His footsteps echoed like gunshots, each one louder than the last. The crowd went wild, a mix of shock and exhilaration. As phones recorded the billionaire's exit, a woman near the front screamed, "He's done," while others chanted, "Mia, Mia." Backstage, pandemonium reigned. Security guards trailed Voss down the hallway, their radios crackling with urgent chatter. A producer, sweat beading on her forehead, shouted into her headset, "He's heading for the exit. Someone stop him." But Voss was already gone, barking into his phone as he disappeared into the night. Rumors swirled instantly. Some said he'd called his team at Nexus, demanding they scrub the segment from the internet. Others claimed he'd threatened to sue the network. None of it mattered. The damage was done. On stage, Reynolds stood alone, the mic still lying on the desk where Voss had thrown it. The crowd was still on its feet. A sea of flashing phones and raised voices. She straightened her blazer, glanced toward the wings where Voss had vanished, and turned to the camera with a smirk. "Well, folks," she said, her voice cool as ice. "Looks like Cerebralink can't handle a little late-night bandwidth." The studio exploded into laughter and applause, the noise swelling like a tidal wave. Reynolds raised an eyebrow and delivered the line that would echo across the internet. "Tonight, we didn't just ask tough questions. We saw what happens when ambition meets accountability. And ambition runs." The camera pulled back, capturing the chaos. Fans pointing at the stage, signs waving wildly, one reading "Nexus equals noise" in bold letters. The screen faded to black, but the internet was just getting started. Within minutes, clips of Voss's meltdown flooded Nexus, TikTok, and every platform in between. The hashtag Voss meltdown shot to the top of trending lists, with users posting memes of Voss throwing his mic, some set to dramatic orchestral music, others paired with cartoon crash sounds. A viral TikTok showed Reynolds sipping her coffee as Voss fumed. Captioned, "When you break a billionaire in 4K." On Nexus, the war was immediate. Voss's supporters rallied, accusing Reynolds of ambushing their hero. "Mia's a corporate shill," one post screamed, racking up thousands of likes. But Reynolds' fans fought back, flooding the platform with clips of her final line, calling it the takedown of the century. A meme of Voss's trembling finger went viral on Instagram, captioned, "When your brain chip short circuits." Even rival talk show hosts jumped in, one posting a clip of the mic toss with the quip, "When your guest tries to reboot but gets a blue screen." Voss didn't stay silent. An hour later, he posted on Nexus, "Visionaries don't bow to clowns. Keep laughing. The future's mine." The replies were brutal. "You bowed out of that stage pretty fast." One user wrote, "Future's yours, but Mia owns tonight." Another quipped, "The internet was a battlefield, and the meltdown was its ammunition." Back in the studio, Reynolds returned to her desk, the crowd still buzzing. She straightened her notes, glanced at the empty chair where Voss had sat, and spoke with her trademark deadpan. "Well, that was enlightening," she said, sparking another round of laughter. "Stick around, folks. We've got more to unpack, and no, we're not cutting to commercial." The audience roared, and the red light on the camera blinked on, a silent promise that this moment was far from over. The Titan's tantrum had ignited, and the flames were spreading. Voss's exit wasn't just a walkout, it was a seismic event, one that would ripple through boardrooms, newsrooms, and living rooms for weeks to come. Reynolds had struck a nerve. and the world was watching to see what would burn next. The stage lights of the night beat had dimmed, but the firestorm ignited by Ethan Voss's explosive exit burned brighter than ever. In the hours, days, and weeks that followed, the incident, already dubbed the Titan's Tantrum, became more than a viral moment. It was a cultural flashpoint, a clash between unchecked ambition and unrelenting scrutiny that reverberated across boardrooms, newsrooms, and living rooms. The world wasn't just watching anymore, it was dissecting, debating, and reshaping the narrative around Ethan Voss, Mia Reynolds, and the very nature of power in the digital age. Backstage, as the studio emptied and the crew began packing up, the chaos lingered like smoke after a fire had burned. Producers huddled in the control room, replaying the footage on monitors, their voices a mix of panic and exhilaration. "This is going to haunt us," one muttered, rubbing his temples. "Or make us legends," another countered, eyes gleaming. The director, still seated at his console, stared at the frozen frame of Voss's trembling finger pointed at Reynolds. "We didn't just air a show," he said quietly. "We started a war." Outside, the internet was a battlefield. The hashtag #VossMeltdown had not only trended, it had shattered records, amassing millions of posts across various platforms, including Nexus and TikTok. Clips of Voss hurling his microphone looped endlessly, some overlaid with dramatic violin scores, others with cartoonish bowing sound effects. A particularly viral TikTok showed Reynolds' smirking delivery of ambition meets accountability, and ambition runs synced to a beat drop that hit 10 million views overnight. On Instagram, a meme of Voss's red-faced exit, captioned, "When your brain chip gets a 404 error," racked up likes faster than a pop star's album drop. Nexus, Voss's platform, was ground zero for the storm. His supporters, a fiercely loyal legion, rallied with posts accusing Reynolds of orchestrating a hit job. "Mia's a puppet for big media," one user declared. Their post shared thousands of times. "Voss is building the future while she's stuck in the past." Others dug into Reynolds' past, unearthing old clips of her sparring with politicians and CEOs, framing her as a serial provocateur. But Reynolds' fans were equally relentless, flooding Nexus with montages of her sharpest moments from the interview, each one captioned with variations of Mia owns. A particularly biting post showing Voss's mic hitting the desk with the caption, "When your ego lands harder than your tech," sparked a thread that stretched for miles. Voss didn't stay silent for long. Hours after the show, as the internet churned, he posted on Nexus, "The small-minded fear what they can't understand. I build for the future, not for clowns chasing applause." The response was immediate and brutal. "You built a tantrum, bro," one user replied, their comment liked into oblivion. "Mia's living rent-free in your head," another quipped, attaching a gif of Reynolds sipping a coffee. Yet Voss's loyalists fought back, sharing Cerebralink's promotional videos and Nexus's mission statements, insisting their hero was misunderstood. The platform became a war zone, with algorithms amplifying the chaos, pushing Voss Meltdown to every user's feed. Beyond Nexus, the mainstream media pounced. News outlets ran headlines like "Billionaire's Breakdown," "Voss storms off talk show," and "Mia Reynolds takes down tech titan." Pundits dissected the clash on morning shows, with some praising Reynolds for holding power to account, and others accusing her of bullying a visionary. A prominent tech columnist wrote, "Voss's meltdown wasn't just a personal failure, it was a warning. When unchecked ambition meets public scrutiny, the cracks show." Another, more sympathetic to Voss, argued, "Reynolds played to the crowd, but Voss is playing for history. Who's winning?" The fallout reached Cerebralink's boardroom. Insiders whispered that the company's stock, already shaky after leaks about trial setbacks, dipped another 5% in pre-market trading. Investors, jittery about Voss's erratic behavior, began questioning his leadership. "He's brilliant, but he's a liability," one shareholder told a financial news outlet, speaking anonymously. If he can't handle a talk show, how's he handling regulators? Cerebralink's PR team scrambled, issuing a statement that read like a diplomatic tightrope walk. Ethan Voss remains committed to advancing human potential. We regret the tone of last night's discussion and look forward to focusing on our mission. But the damage was done. On Nexus, users mocked the statement as corporate damage control, with one viral post quipping, Cerebralink, wiring brains, unwiring egos. The ripple effects touched Voss's other ventures. Nexus, already under fire for its lax moderation, saw major advertisers pause campaigns, wary of being tied to the meltdown's fallout. A leaked email from a Nexus executive circulated on rival platforms revealed panic. We need to clean up the platform's image, or we're hemorrhaging revenue. Voss's urban transit project, a network of high-speed tunnels, faced renewed scrutiny as critics pointed to its delays and ballooning costs. Voss promised cities of the future. A blogger wrote, instead, he's giving us empty tunnels and public tantrums. But not everyone was against Voss. His most ardent supporters, tech enthusiasts, futurists, and self-proclaimed disruptors organized a counter-offensive. They launched a hashtag, #StandWithVoss, sharing stories of how Cerebralink's research had inspired hope for curing neurological disorders. A prominent biohacker posted a video defending Voss, saying, "The man's pushing boundaries no one else dares to touch. Mia Reynolds is just a speed bump on the road to progress." The video racked up millions of views, proving that Voss's base, though battered, was far from broken. For Mia Reynolds, the aftermath was a double-edged sword. The Night Beat saw its ratings soar, with the episode becoming the most watched in the show's history. Clips of Reynolds' takedown dominated streaming platforms, and her social media following doubled overnight. Fans hailed her as a hero, with one Nexus post declaring, "Mia Reynolds is the voice we need, calling out billionaires who think they're above us." A late-night rival, unable to resist, tweeted a clip of the mic toss with the caption, "When Mia turns your interview into a masterclass, even comedians at awards shows couldn't resist," with one joking, "I was going to invite Ethan Voss to present, but I'm afraid he'd throw the trophy." Yet Reynolds faced backlash. Voss's supporters accused her of ambushing their idol, with some digging into her past interviews to paint her as a professional provocateur. A Nexus thread, liked thousands of times, claimed, "Mia planned this to boost her show. She's no journalist, she's a fame chaser." Others went further, flooding her social media with vitriol that bordered on threats. Reynolds, ever the professional, addressed the controversy on the next episode of The Night Beat. "If asking tough questions makes me the bad guy," she said, her tone defiant, "then I'll wear that badge proudly." The audience roared, and the clip went viral, cementing her status as a cultural force. The incident's impact extended beyond Voss and Reynolds, reshaping the landscape of late-night television. Producers across networks took note, with some whispering about inviting more controversial figures to replicate the magic. "Mia showed you can challenge power and win," a veteran showrunner told a trade magazine. "But it's a tightrope. Push too hard, and you're the villain. Push just right, and you're a legend." Others warned of a chilling effect, with high-profile guests now hesitant to appear on talk shows. No one wants to be the next Voss. A publicist confided, "Clients are asking for pre-approved questions, and we're saying no to live formats." The cultural echoes were louder still. The Titan's tantrum became a case study in the clash between unchecked power and public accountability. Academics weighed in, with one sociologist writing, "Voss's meltdown exposed the fragility of the tech mogul myth. When their vision is questioned, the mask slips." Activists seized the moment, using the incident to spotlight Cerebralink's ethical lapses. A grassroots campaign, "Ethics Over Ego," gained traction, demanding stricter oversight of brain-machine interface research. Petitions circulated, calling for investigations into Cerebralink's animal testing practices. Fueled by the leaked video Reynolds had aired, Voss, for his part, retreated from the public eye, a rare move for a man who thrived on attention. Insiders reported he was holed up in his sprawling coastal estate, strategizing with his inner circle. A week after the meltdown, he posted a cryptic Nexus message. The noise fades, the work endures. It was liked millions of times, but the replies were a mixed bag. Some praised his resilience, others mocked his silence. Rumors swirled that he was planning a major Cerebralink announcement to reclaim the narrative, perhaps a breakthrough in human trials. Others claimed he was doubling down on Nexus, aiming to turn it into a fortress for his vision. Reynolds, meanwhile, leaned into her newfound spotlight. The Night Beat became a must-watch, with guests ranging from whistleblowers to policymakers. Each episode a masterclass in fearless questioning. Yet she didn't gloat. In a rare interview, she reflected on the Voss incident with characteristic candor. "I didn't set out to break him," she said. "I just asked the questions anyone would ask if they weren't afraid of the answer." The quote went viral, plastered across T-shirts and social media banners, a testament to her staying power. The Titan's tantrum wasn't just a moment. It was a mirror, reflecting the tensions of an era where technology, power, and accountability collided. For Voss, it was a wound, one that threatened to scar his legacy unless he could rewrite the story. For Reynolds, it was a triumph, proof that a single voice could challenge a titan and win. And for the world watching, it was a reminder no one, not even a billionaire with dreams of wiring humanity's future, was above the truth. As the dust settled, the question lingered. What next? Would Voss emerge stronger, his vision vindicated by some dazzling breakthrough? Or would Reynolds' piercing questions mark the beginning of his unraveling? The stage was empty now, the mic still on the desk, but the echoes of that night were far from silent. They pulsed through every post, every meme, every whispered conversation. A reminder that when ambition meets accountability, the fallout reshapes the world.